Like many people, I have been bombarded with global warming claims over the past 2 decades. This got my attention, so I decided to investigate these matters for myself with an open mind. When I examined the claims made by climate change advocates, it didn't stack up. According to consensus science, so-called, the theory of global warming is that anthropogenic, that is human emissions, are the principal drivers of dangerous global warming. Then what follows is offered up as proof of alleged global warming, that is increase in accelerating melting of ice caps, coastal flooding, the increasing acidity level of oceans, the alleged increased extreme weather events, and the threatened extinction of some species such as polar bears. These claims are at best highly contentious and at worst contradicted by the facts. Extreme weather events have decreased by 30%, according to Indira Gorlani in his book The Improving State of the World. Ice caps are not melting at an unprecedented rate. In actual fact, ice covers have expanded in the last year, according to NASA satellite photographs. Such arguments, however, divert attention away from the simple fact that carbon dioxide of itself cannot drive climate change. Despite the increasing levels of CO2 over the past 2 decades, data shows that global temperatures have gone sideways over the past 16 years and not risen as predicted by consensus science computer modelling, GCMs. Let's be clear about a few things. Firstly, no one denies climate is changing. It always has, is changing, and always will change. Secondly, that carbon dioxide is part of the climate mix and has some influence on the climate. The sticking point is just how much influence does carbon dioxide have on climate. The public is constantly bombarded with images of huge chimneys belching out copious amounts of smoke, which purportedly is carbon pollution. In actual fact, these are pictures of cooling towers that coal-fired power stations, which is water vapour. Water vapour is not a pollutant. The general rule of thumb is if you can see it and smell it, it's not carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is colourless and odourless. Commonly today, carbon dioxide is labelled a pollutant. It's an oxymoron really, because carbon dioxide is essential for life on this planet. Human beings and all living creatures are dependent upon carbon dioxide. We are ourselves carbon-based. Life is not possible on this planet without CO2, so how on earth can it be a pollutant? Carbon dioxide is presented as a major greenhouse gas, but is it? Water vapour is the major greenhouse gas. It makes up 97% of such gases. CO2 makes up about 2.5%. Water vapour is a highly efficient greenhouse gas, and it's approximately 30 times better at being an absorber of heat than CO2 because of its atomic structure, and most long wave radiation passes right through CO2 and escapes into space. CO2 retains heat for a nanosecond, and most carbon dioxide resides in the atmosphere for 7 to 14 years and not 100 years as erroneously claimed by the IPCC. Being a heavy gas, CO2 falls to the ground where plants, vegetation and living things put it to good use. Because CO2 is said to trap some heat and reflect this back to the earth, it's called a positive feedback mechanism. While this is true, we are not told that CO2 also provides a negative feedback. That is, it blocks some incoming heat from the sun. Water vapour has a much greater impact on climate than CO2. Water vapour is responsible for 95% of the Earth's greenhouse effect, because of the electrical imbalances of water molecules, water absorbs far more heat than carbon dioxide. In terms of greenhouse gases, for every 85,800 atmospheric molecules, 3,400 are water vapour, 33 are carbon dioxide, and of this amount, 32 is naturally occurring. Only one molecule out of 83,800 is human carbon emissions. Dr. Ferenc Mokoski, a Hungarian physicist, claims that excessive amounts of carbon dioxide will not increase global warming. Once CO2 reaches a critical point, viz. 50 parts per million, its maximum impact on climate has been achieved. Once it reaches this level, its impact on climate is logarithmic. That is, you have to have huge amounts of increase of carbon dioxide to get a very modest increase in temperature, certainly less than about 1/20th of a degree. There is a limit to the greenhouse effect, in other words, and once that limit has been reached, the critical limit, then adding further greenhouse gases will not make the planet any warmer, and that's the critical point you've got to keep in mind. It also must be noted that the total amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere varies on an annual cycle. This variation is based on 2011 figures, is actually around about 5%. In other words, the total amount of carbon dioxide varies from 370 to 390 parts per million every year. And keeping in mind that that's about 5%, the total contribution of humanity to CO2 emissions is less than 1.7%, well below that 5% variation. So therefore, I fail to see how human emissions can possibly have any significant impact on climate. The science is far from being done and dusted. Research on climate change is ongoing and constantly evolving. As Lord Keynes once famously said, when the facts change, I'll change my mind. Until such time as the facts change, it's my opinion that carbon dioxide can't drive dangerous climate change. It's often argued that even if scientists have it wrong on climate, well, surely we should give the planet the benefit of the doubt. This is known as the precautionary principle, and that we should take measures now to mitigate the long-term impacts of possible acute rises in global temperature. Bjorn Lomborg, the sceptical environmentalist, has clearly shown that this is a very expensive way to tackle a problem, if it indeed it can be a problem. And he would estimate that you'd spend far more just by taking these steps rather than waiting for problems to arise and addressing specific problems if and when they arise. That'd be a far more economical way to tackle it, rather than spending huge amounts of money for virtually no impact on the temperatures. Humanity must stop and recheck its stance on carbon dioxide. Instead of governments being fixated with reducing society's carbon footprint by squandering millions on renewable energy, it would be far more prudent to do their homework first. What we need to get right is the science before we go and trash the global economy and throw millions out of work. After all, that's what the precautionary principle says to do.